Minerva dressed in a floor-length green dress that made her feel excited. With everything that had happened these past few days, she was glad that Devlin and her would get to spend quality time together, and it would hopefully take his mind off things, especially what had happened to Princess Kaytrona in Hyattia. Staring at her reflection in the mirror, she took in the dress she had on. It was strapless, fitted in the bodice, flared out at the skirt, and sparkled. She left her hair down but put it in hot rollers and let it fall into soft waves and curls over her shoulders. After one final approval of her look, she was ready to go. When she got out of the chamber, Devlin was waiting. He was dressed in a black royal suit, the upper part of his chest on full display for her lustful eyes. "You look beautiful tonight," he said, taking a hold of her hands, then gave her a chaste kiss on the lips. "You look really good yourself," she said it with a smile. "I'm actually happy we are doing this." "I am too," he responded. "I know these few days have been stressful for you, especially since you are nearing your due date. I'm sorry you had to go through that." "It's nothing," she says. "You had it worse than I do. After all, this is concerning your sister. I'm sure we will find your mother, and she is no doubt going to pay for what she has done." He nods before pecking her lips again. "Ready?" he asked, offering her his arm. She took it and let him lead her down the stairs and into the dining room. The head cook was in her corner, making last-minute preparations for their meal. "Good evening, King and Queen." "Good evening," they both said in unison. They both walked over to the dining table, and Devlin pulled out a seat for her before taking his seat beside her. The minute they sat down, a maid walked over to them, filling his cup with wine and hers with freshly squeezed juice. "Due to the ruckus, I had forgotten to pass on Letitia's greetings." Devlin said it out of nowhere, making her smile. She knew he was bringing up small talk to avoid thinking about the situation that was at hand. Not that she minded, the dinner, after all, was like their escape route from all the problems, and she was glad he was making an effort to keep his mind focused on her. She looked into his eyes, smiling. "How are she and the twins?" "When I saw her, she was looking vibrant, and the twins seemed to have grown exceedingly well in such a short while." He smiled as he answered. Minerva nodded and took a sip of her juice. Devlin chuckled, causing her to wonder what was amusing, which made him smile even more. "I just recalled a memory." He stated this, and she became curious as to what this memory was. "Letitia had scolded me for leaving you, saying I needed to go back, and she had demanded that I return here. She was truly worried about you." His words made her smile. "That's who she is. She sure does have the kindest heart." Devlin nods, agreeing with her. The conversation ceased when the maids began serving their foods, which included a variety of specialties. Minerva's mouth watered, and she couldn't wait to have a taste of the delicious food placed in front of her. The both of them began eating, making small talks, and were nearing the end of their dinner when a knock resonated from outside the door of the dining room, and it was pulled open by a guard walking in. He bowed when he got to them before speaking. "Your Majesties, Lord Balthazar is here and wishes an audience with the both of you." Zane. Devlin was surprised at his unexpected visit. "Lead him to the throne room," he commands, and the guard nods, making his way out of the room. What could he possibly want? Minerva muttered to herself as they both got to their feet. "Not sure, but I guess we would find out," Devlin said, and they both made their way out of the dining room to the throne room, where Zane awaited. "Zane," Devlin called out when both he and Minerva walked in. "Devlin, Minerva." Zane greets them, giving them a small smile. "I wasn't aware of your visit." "I'm afraid I come bearing bad news." "What is it?" Devlin asked, worried. Zane takes a deep breath before speaking. "Letitia has been kidnapped." Zane's words had been met with silence as Devlin and Minerva stared at him, expecting him to say it had been a joke. But when the former said nothing else and instead stared at them with a disheartened look, they were fully certain that this was no joke. What do you mean Letitia has been kidnapped?" Devlin asked, fear crawling up on him at the thought of something happening to Letitia. What happened to Kaytrona still wrecked him, and here he was hearing news about his younger sister being kidnapped. Right after you left the celebration, Darium had gone looking for her but couldn't find her anywhere in the palace, and surprisingly, Oren had also disappeared. King Oren of Hyattia? Devlin questioned. I wasn't aware he was invited since he was an enemy and didn't see him at the ballroom. Actually, Zane started off before he began explaining the plan they made days ago and their reason for having invited Oren. What the hell? Devlin growls. Why would you let him be anywhere close to the palace? I can't believe Darium agreed to this, and no one thought to tell me. Darium had been against it. Though it wasn't a perfect plan, we all hoped to get the upper hand. We must have underestimated the face that he would strike with the guards constantly patrolling the palace. And yet no one was able to notice something was amiss or the fact that their queen was missing. Devlin said, his voice filled with sarcasm. There is no way he would have been able to pull this off without help from inside the palace. He did get help from one of the guards, but before we could realize that or get the chance to interrogate him, he was murdered. Fucking great. Devlin cursed, banging his hand on the edge of the chair beside him. My sister is with that sadistic lunatic. You're very well aware of what he did to Katrona, and now Letitia is in his hold, without a single protection. Darium is on his way to Hyattia and is out for blood. Zane tells him. He had followed after them and has literally lost. I know he is not going to rest until he gets her back. Then we need to help him. Devlin inputs before turning to face Minerva, asking if it was okay for him to leave. Minerva, who had been quietly listening to their conversation, nodded, letting him know she was okay. He closed the distance between them, pecking her lips. Go save Letitia, she says with a smile, and Devlin nods. Both he and Zane began making their way out of the throne room when Minerva groaned stop him. What wrong? He questioned, rushing towards her when he saw her holding onto her belly with a painful expression on her face as water dripped to the floor. She groans out again, the pain unbearable. Guards, get the healer. Devlin yells, lifting her into his arms as he rushes out of the throne room to the chamber as fast as he can. Devlin placed her gently on the bed while he awaited the arrival of the healer. He made his way out of the room where Zane was waiting with a troubled expression. How is she? I don't know, till the healer arrives. He replied, worried. You don't have to say anything. Minerva is as important as Letitia, and she is your wife. She needs you now. You don't have to worry about Letitia. Darium is going to bring her back safely. It's easier said than done. Not worrying about Letitia, Devlin says with a sigh. Why don't the guards show you to a guest room? You must be tired from traveling such a distance. I'm just going to freshen up. I will be with you shortly, Zane says, following the guard out the hallway of the chamber, just as the healer rushed in. Your Majesty, he greeted. Something is wrong with the queen. She seemed to be in pain. He explains that the both of them then rushed into the room where Minerva lay in pain. The healer immediately walked over to where Minerva lay to check on her before speaking. It is just like I suspected. Her Majesty is in labor. The midwife has been alerted and should be on their way, but from what I can tell, Her Majesty is still going through contractions, and it's too early for the child to be born. He says this before passing on instructions to Minerva, letting her know not to yell and try to save her strength until it was time for the actual childbirth. Minerva listened to the doctor very seriously and endured the pain. Devlin sat on a seat beside the bed, holding onto her hand as bursts of pain struck her one after another, and she gradually lost her ability to think as if she were left alone in this world with an enormous burden of pain. She unconsciously tightened her hold on Devlin's hand, which turned warm because of her grip. Is there any way to ease the pain? Devlin asked the healer, who gave him a defeated look. I'm afraid not, Your Majesty. At this point, there is nothing I can give her. What about her condition? Isn't she close to delivering? The healer said, looking at her situation, I don't think she can give birth soon. I'm afraid that she might only go into labor tonight or tomorrow. Devlin looked at her painful expression and could feel his heart being ripped out. Minerva was enduring more and more pain in the ward. There was another wave of intense pain, and she felt like her entire body was being pulled apart. She was now in a trance-like state and subconsciously clenched the amulet in her hand. Why didn't anyone warn her about how excruciating it was going to be? "Your Majesty, may I make a suggestion?" the healer asked. Women are very vulnerable at this time. They really need the comfort and support of their husbands. Why don't you tell her comfortable words to help her relax? Minerva could vaguely hear what they were saying and didn't have the strength to care. All of her energy was being used to tolerate the searing pain. "How long do I have to wait?" she asked breathlessly. The healer looked at her and said, "It's still early. I don't even think you are ready yet," he said. "Your Majesty, you have to tolerate this a little more. I know you can do it." Minerva did not have the strength to reply. Beads of sweat were dripping from her forehead, causing Devlin to take a white towel and wipe her sweat off. He gently said to her, "Don't worry. I'm here." It took a few seconds before she clearly understood what he said. Slowly, when she was able to get a sense of reason, she turned to look at him. "Why are you still here? You need to go. Letitia needs you. I can take care of myself. You don't have to worry. Go." "No, there is no way I'm going to leave you while you are in pain and about to deliver our child. Devlin. Letitia needs." Her voice was hoarse, and her mind was in a mess. The lower half of her body hurt immensely, and she felt that her body was being ripped apart. I'm not leaving you, end of discussion." He says this, leaving no room for argument. I wasn't sure how many days it had been. Was it 3 or 4? It was hard to tell when all I did was wake up and go back to sleep again. I still hadn't eaten anything yet, and my body felt weak. The door opens, with Raleigh walks in. This time she was holding a tray in her hand, but had a glass of what seemed to be freshly squeezed juice. "At this rate, I'm scared you might actually fall sick," Raleigh states, walking to where I sat on the bed. "It's better than being locked here." "You know that is not true," she says. "I admire your resilience, but doing this doesn't change anything. Letting your health deteriorate does no good to the people who care about you. What about King Sviatoslavic? Sure, he is going nuts trying to save you. Shouldn't you hold on for him, for them?" I feel the tears fall from my eyes, knowing she was right. I was too weak. I hadn't eaten or drank anything yet. I still haven't seen Oren since I was brought here. I had no idea what he was planning or why he was quiet about it. "Have a drink." Raleigh pushes the glass of drink towards me. "You need something in your system." My eyes shifted from her to the glass of drink resting on it, and I hesitantly took the glass from her. I take a sip of the drink first, and soon I find myself gulping it down. Raleigh had a warm smile plastered across her face before speaking again. "Now, we need to get you bathed. You haven't showered in days. I will have another maid come prepare a bath for you. I'm sure you feel dirty wearing that for days." She points at the red dress I had on, the one I had worn for Darium's birthday. At the thought of Darium, I feel my heart ache, missing him and the twins dearly. His birthday was supposed to be a special day for him, irrespective of our plans, but of course everything went sideways. Raleigh took the empty glass from my hold and walked out of the room while I remained on the bed, my knees pulled up with my head resting on it and my arms wrapped around my legs. I wasn't sure for how long I remained in this position until the door opened again and Raleigh walked in, this time with a young maid following behind her. The young girl looked frightened to the core, her clothes were dirty, and she was looking lanky, almost malnourished. It was nearly the same as Raleigh, and I wondered just how badly King Oren treated the people working for him. He reminded me so much of Leandros. All he cared about was his needs, discarding those of his people. "This is Sierra, she will help you with your bath," Raleigh says, snapping me out of my thoughts. "It's not necessarily. Here in Hyattia, we have certain rules, not following them will result in severe consequences. So it's best to let the young maid do her job." Raleigh, and I turned to look at the girl, gauging her reaction, the fear still prominent in her face. I gave a nod, rising to my feet and heading towards the bathing chamber with the young maid trailing behind me. "I will have your dinner brought to you. I hope this time you do have a bite." A concerned look was plastered across her face when she spoke again before making her way out of the room. My bath was relaxing. It felt nice having to wash up. The maid didn't utter a word during the course of my bath and only assisted me with what I needed. Once I was done, I made my way back into the room I kept in. Another red dress was placed on the bed, almost similar to the one I had been wearing, and my brows creased. I got dressed with Sierra once again helping me. When she was done, she bowed, making her way out of the room, and it wasn't up to a second before Raleigh walked back in, holding onto a tray of food. She walks over to the bed, placing the tray on it, and I stare down at the plate of roasted chicken and vegetables. Hesitantly, I picked up the fork and knife, cutting a small piece of chicken and bringing it to my lips. I tried not to moan, realizing that I was in fact hungry. Raleigh stood right beside me, smiling down at me as I ate. "You seem familiar with me. Have you been to Nisha before?" I asked, curious as to how she knew who I was from the very first day. "I doubt there is anyone who doesn't know about you." She chuckled. "I always did keep in touch with what goes on in Nisha. It's a way of knowing if my family over there are okay or not." "Why are you here then, and not over there?" I was surprised as to why she had stayed instead, living in better condition at Nisha. Like I said, King Orin has rules given to his servants. My daughter and husband had been lucky to leave for Nisha when he took over the throne, but that isn't the case for me. I'm old, and following them would have slowed them down, giving the guards time to catch them. I'm all but grateful they made it out alive. My heart breaks at her words, knowing that a lot of people in Hayatia are suffering all because of King Orin. We both didn't speak again as I carried on eating in comfortable silence. Once I was done with my dinner, I took a huge gulp of my drink, lifting my face up to look at Raleigh. Then, "Thank you." My words came out slurred, and my eyes became heavy. I tried to shake off the dizziness, wondering what was wrong with me. That was when I noticed the look of guilt on Raleigh's face as she peered down at me, my eyes glued to the empty plate and glass, before settling back on her. "What did you give me?" I slurred, falling back to the bed, my body feeling weak, and it was impossible to move. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty." Raleigh's voice was the last thing I heard as I began to lose consciousness. I should never have let my resolve fall. "Ugh," I muttered, my head almost splitting into two. "I am sorry, dear, but I didn't have any choice," a voice says, and I narrowed my eyes at the owner of the familiar sound, feeling the anger begin to brew in me. "You bastard!" I yelled, but ended up coming out croaked and weak. Whatever had been used to drug me was still in my system. "How is my queen doing?" King Orin asks instead, making his way slowly to the bed in which I was lying. "I am not your queen," I spoke, my voice laced with hatred, and I glared at him. "Ah, yes. Not yet, but we may be able to change it. Finally, you will be mine." He smirked, and I scoffed at this. "You are highly delusional if you think for a second that I will ever be yours. Why do you fight me constantly when all I want is to shower you with everything beautiful in the world? I can and will lay the earth at your feet, so my fight is against me," he asks bitterly. "You so easily accepted that monster and let him claim you as his. Why can't you do the same for me?" "It seems the both of us have a different concept of what a monster is." I laughed at this. "Of course, with you heading in the direction of delusion, I suggest you snap out of it." Parting his lips slightly to show his brown, disgusting teeth, he rested a hand on the wall and leant closer to me. "Your eyes look even more enchanting when you are angry." "You will never be a match for Darium, and you know that, you coward." "Must everything always be about that bastard?" he yells, punching the wall behind me, and I shiver in fear. He must have taken note of this as his eyes closed, only for a brief moment. "I have no intentions of scaring you, Letitia dear, but I just can't tolerate his name being uttered from that beautiful lips of yours." He says it as if he were trying to calm his breath. "I want you to give me a chance to prove that I am far better for you than you will ever be. You and I are a perfect fit." King Orin is slowly whispering in my ear. I despised it from the bottom of my heart. The proximity of another man was not something I could bear. "Get away from me." I scooted away from him in disgust to the farthest corner of the bed. Sooner or later, you will have to give in. I know you will. He crawled towards her like a predatory animal, making my breath hitch and my eyes widen in fright. Stay the hell away from me! I screamed. This only made him laugh hysterically and darkly grumble. Scream all you want, but no one is coming to help you. They know not to. When Darium! I yelled out in pain when he grabbed harshly onto my arm, tears filling my eyes. Darium, Darium, Darium. I hate his name coming out of those perfect lips of yours. He growls. But don't worry, soon it will only be my name coming out of those lips of yours. Mine and mine alone. You are disgusting! I raised a hand to his face, but he was quick to catch it, a smirk on his face. I never knew you could be so feisty. I like it very much, you know. Everything about you. You didn't even know I had been observing every move of yours and waiting for you. It was infuriating to see you slip away from my sight every single moment. His fingers danced around my collarbone. I can be a better lover, I can give you the pleasure your body so desperately needs. Oh, how generous of you! I muttered out sarcastically. But too bad, Darium does a perfectly good job giving me the pleasure I need. So fuck of. His jaw clenched. If this is how you want me to be. He trailed off, bringing me closer to him. He whispered darkly, then why don't I give you a little taste of the consequences of disobeying me? He brought his face closer to mine, and his lips came down on mine. I was quick to look away, and they landed on my cheek, but he seems adamant as he roughly grabs my face, pulling it in his direction. One of his hands reaches down to grab my neck as he smirks, attempting to kiss me again. At that time, a knock resonated harshly from outside the door. Oren pulled away from me, anger in his eyes, as he snapped. Who is it? Your Majesty, we have a problem. A voice calls out. King Oren's gaze moved from the door to me, and he sighed. Make no mistake, this isn't the end. I plan on making you mine tomorrow. He states, his eyes holding so many promises that they terrified me to the bone. He moved away from me, giving me one last look before making his way out the door. And I feel my breath begin to calm down, my eyes slowly shutting close, and as much as I wanted to keep them open, my body still felt weak, and I ended up falling unconscious again.